Welcome to episode 124 of Rebirth Revolution. My name is Melissa Olson. When I was growing up, people would get very upset if you used the name of God as part of a cuss word. You were not supposed to take the Lord's name in vain. At the time, it was a pretty big deal. The proof that you weren't supposed to add the G in front of the damn came from the Bible, which said, "Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain." It even earned the number 3 position in the 10 Commandments. That's pretty serious, I'm going to imagine. In vain was another way of saying to misuse the name, to strip it of meaning and reverence. To those who adhere to this rule, saying Jesus Christ out of context or even, "Oh my God," is a sin. This kind of talk could land you in hell. But back in the day, this cussing situation was the only way in which that rule was ever applied. Even as a kid, I couldn't really understand this. It always seemed to me the religious practices of nitpicking language and creating elaborate practices was really beneath the scrutiny of any supreme being. I thought that any force that was powerful enough to create everything and everyone would have a perspective that was not so surface level, so meaningless. It's like the priest who had to resign because he said, "We baptize you," instead of "I baptize you," which rendered thousands of baptisms null and void. When you start nitpicking language like this, I think you've lost the thread. I always assumed that the Supreme Being was much deeper than to be looking for any sort of technicality to use to send someone to hell. I can't imagine why there would be that sort of motivation. But as always, we project our own weaknesses onto the Creator. The assessment of how we are doing would more productively be about who we were in the world and how we treated others. I couldn't imagine that a cuss word here and there would be such a big deal that it would outweigh the depths of who a person is in this world and the choices they make with the free will that they have been granted. So time has gone by and we aren't quite as puritanical about language as we once were, which leaves the question, has the Creator gotten over their shock and disgust at cuss words? I was looking at Twitter the other day and saw a picture of a woman who is running for governor in a southern state. On her van, it said in large letters, "Jesus, guns, babies." Those 3 words strung together turned my stomach. This woman could have strung together a litany of cuss words, and I wouldn't even blink. But stringing these 3 words together made me feel sick. Those words do not belong together. I think I finally understand using the Lord's name in vain. Word to the wise. If anyone uses weaponry in their campaign photos, it is safe to assume that they are unhinged and dangerous. If they also refer to the Creator, they are doubly dangerous. Someone seeking money and power and using the name of the Lord to that end is problematic to say the least. To include babies in that mess is equally problematic. The whole thing is disgusting and surely strips all meaning and reverence for the Lord's name. As Mahatma Gandhi once said, "I like your Christ, but not your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ." Obviously, this doesn't apply to all Christians, but you have to notice that those on the evangelical right-wing side have surely lost the thread. They have injected a level of hatred and violence into their brand of religion that is truly sickening. Watch as more and more politicians use the Lord as a supposed representation of their pious ways while posing with the largest, most lethal weaponry they can drum up. How anyone can think that creating the better world that we wish for will be done with assault weapons is beyond me. Watch as more and more churchgoers use their membership in a religion to denigrate and destroy people who do not adhere to their beliefs. Watch what they do to all the other children of God. Watch how they use God's name to strip them of their rights and their God-given dignity. And watch how they tell you that their hateful actions against the creations of the Lord are required because they were told by God to do so. It's gross. It's so much more heinous than cuss words could ever be. Just know that what truly matters is what's in your heart. You know, the deep down stuff, the love you have for others, your willingness to be open to the importance of everyone's life, and the adventures we all have here in this school and beyond. Watch out for those who want to associate the source of our lives with that which is designed to destroy lives. That is truly taking the Lord's name in vain. The pandemic has brought into sharp focus the divisions we have in the ways we process life and the lessons around us. We see those who are rooted in traditional Western science and those who reject all of that in favor of their faith. You've heard the whole, I won't get COVID because I'm washed in the blood of Christ talk. It makes me think of, what type of person am I? Either a person of science or a person of faith. This brings me back to more words of the French philosopher and mathematician Blaise Pascal. He said, if we submit everything to reason, our religion will be left with nothing mysterious or supernatural. If we offend the principles of reason, our religion will be absurd and ridiculous. First off, why am I quoting this guy for the fourth time? I can't explain that. My process is as follows. I put on headphones and listen to focus and creativity music, and the words just spill out. Why this guy keeps showing up confounds me. He lived in the 1600s and had lots of great thoughts. Why does he find his way into my podcast so often? I don't even own a book about him. How he continues to make his presence known is truly a mystery to me. So, back to what he said. If we submit everything to reason, our religion will be left with nothing mysterious or supernatural. If we offend the principles of reason, our religion will be absurd and ridiculous. These words help clarify my position. I am a yes and kind of person. Yes and is a term that is used in improvisational comedy that refers to taking what the person before you said and building upon that instead of simply rejecting it. I think that aligns with what Mr. Pascal stated. Life is rarely about the either or. Life doesn't give us the options of answer A or answer B alone. It gives us an additional answer, answer C, which is all of the above and then some. The fact that Pascal was a mathematician and he knew there was room for mystery and the supernatural says a lot about him. I've always been a bit left of center when it comes to my own health care, and COVID is no different. I think that there are natural things we can do to help keep ourselves safe, though I'm not talking about horse dewormer, since that has been scientifically proven to be ineffective. But I also drove a very long distance to another city to get in line for my first of 3 vaccinations. It's not either or. It is yes and. I think it's worth our time to release ourselves from the boxes that confine us in one camp or the other. The data is pretty strong in favor of vaccination. That cannot be denied. The hospitals are overflowing with people who have tried to deny this and stick with only the alternatives that they hear about. There is a level of stubbornness that goes along with that position that has brought about unnecessary illness and death. It's a very strange hill to literally die on. Yes, and is the concept of building upon what already exists. It subverts the energy we usually want to put towards rejecting what others say and puts it into expanding the picture. It is about opening up to more possibilities. Isn't that what we all want? More possibilities? We tend to develop tunnel vision over time, thinking the same thoughts over and over again. Yes-anding the world will allow you to stretch your thought processes, sharpening both your intellect and your intuition. If your life is ruled entirely by logic, you are missing all the magic and the mystery. You are missing all the breadcrumbs that are being dropped for you by unseen sources. You are shutting down your possibilities. If your life is all magic and mystery and no logic, you are untethered. You cannot live without logical thought. You cannot live on the breadcrumbs alone. Be all of it. Be the thinker and the feeler. They say that people are typically either dominant in the right side of their brain or the left side of their brain. The right side is all about feelings, imagination, holistic thinking, nonverbal cues, and the arts. The left side is all about logic, sequencing, linear thinking, math, and facts. You may be dominant on one side or the other, but shouldn't the goal be to be fully integrated? Shouldn't the goal be to use all the ways your brain can process the world? We are moving away from a world that is defined by the tiny boxes we shoehorn ourselves into. We are moving into a world that requires more of us and offers more to us. You already have the capacity for all of it inside of you. Why not give the world the gifts that you've been hiding away? Let it all flow and see where it takes you. The world has been changed drastically with the advent of digital technology. Long gone are the days when everyone in our country had their TVs turned to the same shows at the same time, and everyone got their news from one of 3 national newscasters. One of the ways that we were able to connect with one another is that we could talk to people at school or work the next day and have a pretty good shot at having watched the same TV show. It was a point of connection. Those days are pretty much gone. Now people consume content from many different sources, streamed from many different outlets, watching whenever they wish. Only sporting events seem to unite people at the same time. I'm a huge college football fan, as is required where I live. And there is nothing quite like watching a game while sitting next to an open window. You can hear people in your neighborhood cheering in unison from their own separate houses. It's what we do here, and it is unifying. You may not all be having the same experience at the same time any longer, but the connections persist. My next-door neighbor and I may have very different lives and watch completely different shows, but we each are connecting with others who consume the same content. We just now do it worldwide. I can watch the latest episode of Euphoria and then see what people all over the world thought of it through social media. I'm no longer limited to the water cooler for that connection. The connections are different, which can make it seem like you have less in common with those who live physically near you, but we have expanded our options to pretty much the entire world. Our neighborhood is now the globe. Back in the day, I could have the opinions that I share here on Rebirth Revolution, and maybe a few neighbors would hear about it. Frankly, they would probably decide that I was some sort of nut and would give me the side eye when I walked to my mailbox. Now I can podcast my thoughts and see that there are people who download and listen from every single continent around the globe. Think about how wild that is. They have no idea who I am, yet somehow they are drawn to this content. There is something that I am saying here that applies to their life, even though we may seemingly have lives that have nothing in common. Here is where it's getting deeper. Our connections are no longer limited to those who live within walking radius. They extend all over the globe. We can find like-minded people anywhere at any time. That is something that was previously unimaginable. There is an app that I enjoy that allows me to listen to radio stations anywhere in the world. It's called Radio Garden. When you use the app, you see all the spots all over the globe where there are radio stations. You can click on any of them to stream live radio. That was once a concept that would be completely unimaginable. I can now listen to a radio station that my Norwegian relatives likely listen to just to get a feel for what they may be like. Social media connects us to people everywhere, for better or worse. It also blurs the lines between people you know, people you used to know, and people who you will likely never meet. Our brains are being rewired for different, more complex and fluid connections. Some assume this is bad. It makes no sense to label it either good or bad, as it is our new reality. So I guess the only thing to say is, yes, and. Thanks for returning for another week of Rebirth Revolution. I hope you're finding the time to disconnect from some of the turmoil and find your inner peace. It is always there to be mined if we take the time to develop that skill. You can always let me know how you're doing by emailing me at rebirthrev@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Rebirth Revolution can be found on all the podcast apps, the music apps, and full episodes are found on YouTube and on our Facebook page. Please subscribe, download, and share whenever possible. Until next week, pull back from the nitpicking and focus on what truly matters. See if there is anything you can yes and in your life. Get vaccinated, wear an N95 mask, and be open to new connections, unless they are Tinder swindlers. Remember, you are loved exactly as much as every other person on the planet, not 1 ounce more or 1 ounce less. Stay strong and safe, and on the lookout for lunatics.